My name is Jocelyn Nicholas, and I am a real estate broker in this area, Kitchener-Waterloo, Guelph. I've been investing in real estate for the last 7 years. I actually got started as a part-time investor. So I was working a full-time job. My background is in economics. So I worked for the Ontario government while I used my income to buy properties. So we did that for a while, and around me, my friends and family were asking us how we do what we do and if we could show them how to do that. So I first got my license to help my friends and family, but quickly I realized that, I was very passionate about what I was doing and also had something to teach. So I ended up actually transitioning into real estate full-time. I own properties in Hamilton, Guelph and Kitchener-Waterloo. I used to have some properties in Niagara as well. So that is a market that I'm familiar with. I don't have any property right now there because I was lucky enough to get some really good offers that I couldn't turn down. So I sold my Niagara portfolio, but I also wanted to put it out there that is also a market that I'm very familiar with. If I was to pick a superpower, I would say it's in building wealth through real estate. The reason I say that is because I've seen what it's done for my family. For those who know me, they'll tell you I came to Canada about 12 years ago, and I was basically starting from scratch. So to see what real estate has done for my family and to see what it's doing for my clients, I really am passionate to share that to those who would like to learn more about real estate investing. Now, I know that not everyone on this webinar is an investor. Some people are just looking to buy their first home. Some people are looking to upgrade, but that is okay. I like to say this because that's how I got into real estate investing. Somebody said it at in a different conversation that I was having, and it sparked interest within me. So if you're passionate about investing or you'd like to learn more, let me know. That's a conversation I'm always happy to have. So tonight we'll be looking at a quick market update. I'll look at interest rates and where they're going. I'll look at affordability and home prices in our region. I'll also look at some demographics to look at population growth as well as our median income in our region. For people who are looking to move here, especially those who don't live in a GTA or even in Ontario, would like to review some top employers in our region, like where are the jobs coming from, would like to look at some neighborhoods in Waterloo region and Wellington County. For those who don't live in the province might be wondering what's Wellington County. So Guelph, which is the city I live in, is part of Wellington County. So we look at Waterloo and Wellington County. So if you see any data under Wellington, that is just the county that Guelph is in. We'll also look at some top schools in Waterloo and Wellington counties, and we'll look at universities as well. We'll look at some commuting options, as well as look at a plan. If somebody was thinking to buy, where should they be looking? Where should they start? We'll take a quick look at that. And of course, it's always better if I know your situation. As I said, you can book a consultation with me where I can go through the plan with you, make it more personalized. Alrighty, so this is the interesting part of the presentation, the numbers. I'm a numbers person. I come from a numbers background. So inflation has been the talk of our economy for the last year, even, for the last year or even maybe more. It's gone up, as you can see in the graph here, starting in 2021. Inflation just kept going up, with all the policies that the government were implementing, and of course, all the supply chain issues we had that forced prices to go up. As you can see here, it peaked at 8%, but it's been coming down thanks to the interest rates that the Bank of Canada has been increasing. So right now we're sitting at about 6%. And the Bank of Canada has projected that this number will go down to 3% by mid-2023. And they've also said that they project that it will go back to normal. So they like to see inflation at around 2%. So that's where you see the red line there. And that's where we were, on average, in 2018, 2019, 2020. That is the number they like to see. And they would like to bring that number back to 2%. So they're thinking that they will reach this goal by early 2024. And if this is good, like if the numbers go as projected, this would be good for a lot of buyers who are worried about interest rates. So due to inflation, you probably already know this as well, rates have been going up. The Bank of Canada has increased rates from 0.25% to 4.5% as a strategy to bring down inflation. As you can see, we can say it's working, but from what the Bank of Canada has said is that the effect of interest rates is usually lagged. So what they've done in the last year, we might not see the full effect of those interest rate hikes until the next few months, which is why for now they say there'll be no more hikes for the foreseeable future. And if everything goes as forecasted, if everything goes as planned, they will not raise rates in the near future. And in fact, they will consider reducing rates. So if we get to our targeted rate of 2%, they know that a lot of companies, a lot of people in the economy are struggling, and they will consider, if the economy shows that there's need for them to lower rates, that is something that they will be looking to, they'll start to look at in the near future. At this point, that is not a conversation yet. What we're seeing is that, especially after this decision was announced, that rates will not be going up anymore, we're seeing activity pick up. More buyers are coming back to the market. More sellers are feeling more confident. And in fact, if you look boots on the ground, being on the market, you will see that we're starting to see 2 offers on a property, sometimes 3 offers. We weren't seeing that in December and November and October like last year. That was not something we were seeing. In most cases, you'd be the only offer on the table. However, that is starting to change. It's not crazy yet, so I don't want to create a sense of fear or urgency, but I'm just saying, me being boots on the ground, I can already see that things are changing. The market is, people are starting to get a sense of stability. And I think that's also what a lot of people have been waiting for. We do have a lot of buyers who've been waiting to see where the market goes. People who've been waiting for stability, or people who've been wondering, what if I buy and the price goes down? So those people who've been sitting on the fence are coming back into the market. So usually what happens is when supply, let me go to the next slide. So here, as you can see, this is a graph of what's been happening price-wise. So this data is for all of Ontario, but I double checked the data, and this graph represents what's been happening in Guelph, what's been happening in Waterloo, in fact, what's been happening in most of Ontario. So this is Ontario averages. However, if you look at our specific data for our market, as well as what's happening in Waterloo region, you'll see that this graph is representative of that story. So from what you can see, prices since 2010, and this will be true if you even look at data, as much as, even in the 90s, you'll see that the Canadian market goes up and down over time. However, the long-term trend is upward. So I bring up this graph because I'd like to show you something interesting. What's happening right now is something that we also saw in the past. We've seen this previously. If I can bring your attention to 2017, you will see that the market, for those who remember in 2017, the market was really, really heated. And we had, those multiple offer situations. And then the government brought in new rules to regulate the market. And then prices went down. So prices, always go down in reaction to something that's happening. So in this case, prices went down, and that bubble that had been created was eliminated. Similar story we're seeing right now in 2022 and going into 2023, that prices have gone up so much, and we had a lot of bidding wars. In most cases, most properties were selling way, way over the listing price. So because of that, prices were inflated. From what we can see right now, and with the data we're seeing, it looks like that bubble has been eliminated. I'm showing this graph to speak to someone who's been waiting on the fence, waiting for the market to crash or for the market to correct. I think this is a window of opportunity where you can pick up something, because right now the data for January has come in. Right now we're in February. So this data point, the new data point that's pointing upwards, that is the new data point for January. Now, this is one data point. We can make conclusions and say that the market is going up again. But however, and me being on boots on the ground and sensing what's happening, this is a signal that maybe that crash that we've been waiting for, the crash that people have been talking about, that's already happened. And maybe from here, maybe we go upwards. And from what you can see in the graph, it's been up and down, a little bit of stability, and then it goes backwards again. It goes upwards again. So this is really interesting for me. And for those who are wondering what the prices are right now, we've seen a 21% drop since February of 2021. And right now, the average price of a home sits at $729,000 in Guelph and $725,000 in Waterloo. These are averages including condos. So if you're looking for a detached home, the price will be slightly higher. In terms of homes on market, we do have more homes on market than we are used to. The graph you're seeing right now is like how it fluctuates over time. Usually at the peak, that is around spring market, so April, May, and June, and then prices, of course, like the number of homes on market decline in December because no one is listing their home during the holidays. So a similar story. However, what I want you to notice is like how high the peaks are and how low the bottoms are. This is what we had in 2010, 2011, and 2012. However, as we got through the pandemic, things changed. Our new normals got lower. So you can see that our peak, the most number of homes we had in 2021 was much lower than some of the lows we've had over the years. So the reason I'm showing this is for a buyer right now, it's a much easier time to find a home than we had in the last 2 years, because now we have more inventory in market. That is good news. Another thing that I also wanted to show is that even though we act like, prices have dropped, the market has crashed, in reality, this is going back more to normal, because from what you can see, even when I look at the data in previous years, this is not normal. Like these low levels of inventory that we saw in 2020 and 2021, this is not normal. In fact, what we're going towards is what's normal. So, I guess I also say this to eliminate that feeling of fear that the market is crashing or that things are, changing too much. It might feel that way, but the data tells us that what we're going towards is what's more normal. And I think that this is a more fair market because the seller comes to market, they list their home, and buyers have options. You have the time to do your due diligence. What we saw in 2020 and 2021, due diligence was limited. We had to be creative. For example, we had to do inspections before the offer date because we're in competition. So in most cases, we had to be very creative on how we do our due diligence. However, with the correction, we've come back to a time where buyers can take their time and do due diligence and buy a home comfortably knowing what they're getting into. So from what you can see here, we have about 400 homes on market right now in Guelph. And, for someone who's looking for one home, we definitely do have a lot of options. I find that on average, a lot of my clients take about, I'm going to say between 2 weeks and 4 weeks to find a home they're looking for, depending on the criteria. For example, for someone who's looking for something rural, it takes longer because there are fewer homes in the rural areas. However, if you're looking for, let's say, a 3-bedroom home in the urban setting, that shouldn't take too long. So in most cases, I'm finding it's taking between 2 weeks and 4 weeks to find something decent. In terms of household income in our region, looking at the graph, you can see that in Waterloo region, as well as Wellington County, our household income, as well as our income for single persons, is higher than the provincial average, as well as higher than the Canadian or the national average. So right now in Wellington County, the average household makes about $97,000. And in Waterloo region, it's about $94,000. And for the Canadian average, I think it's about 81. So you can see that we're, this is a good indication of like our economic stability, as well as, of course, like, the quality of resident who lives here. Not that money is an indicator of how good people are, but I know that these are indicators that economists are using to gauge the economic stability of a region. So if you're a person who's concerned about these figures, now you know this is our average income and it's higher than the provincial as well as the national income. In terms of population, our population is growing. Many of you may know we have a lot of people moving to Canada. 12 years ago, I made that decision myself. I moved here. So we see that between 2016 and 2021, Canadian population grew by 5%. And the Ontario population grew by 5.77%. I was actually surprised by this number a bit because I thought that it would have grown by a larger number since most people are coming to Ontario. But anyway, it looks like the people who are coming to Ontario may be evenly distributed across other provinces. However, what's interesting is that majority of people who are coming to Ontario, they're coming in Southwestern Ontario. You know, they're coming to Waterloo region as well as Wellington County, because our population, the rate of growth in these counties is higher than the growth for Ontario as well as that of Canada. And for most of you may know, in the pandemic, we also saw a lot of people who live in GTA move out. So this number accounts for that as well, where we're seeing our counties grow. Crime rate is another thing that people care about. So you can see that over the last 20 years, crimes have been declining, but more importantly, you can see that our rate for Kitchener-Waterloo, Cambridge area is much lower than that of the national average. So that's always a good indication. It's a safe community. For top employers, these are some of the top employers. We have the universities, which is the education sector. We do have the manufacturing industry. That is also a place where people are getting a lot of jobs. We have insurance and financial services in Waterloo. So we have Manulife as well as Sun Life Financial. We have healthcare, so all the hospitals, the clinics, and then we have government services, which is the provincial government. Actually, they have a big presence here in Guelph. So the federal government as well does have a big presence. But of course, we also have the cities and the townships. So government services is one of the largest employers here in this region. We do have technology. That is something that a lot of people don't know, actually. But Waterloo is one of the biggest tech hubs in North America. Well, I shouldn't, if I say it shows up on the map for North America, but definitely in Canada, it is up there on the map, and we have some big employers there as well. And we do have retail. I'm very passionate about this area, but I don't want to overrepresent the numbers. So when you come to this region, you're coming closer to 4 urban cores. So you can get a job in Guelph, you can get a job in Cambridge, you can get a job in Kitchener as well as Waterloo. So you have access to that, and the commute times between the cities is about 20 to 30 minutes, depending on where you're coming from. If you're coming from Waterloo, coming to Guelph, you're looking at maybe about 40 minutes, but coming to Cambridge to Guelph is about 15 minutes. So we do have an innovation district in Waterloo as well. And this is very good for people who are self-employed or they work in the tech industry and they're looking to start a technology company, or they're looking for a tech job. We do have some resources for them in Waterloo region. We have the Accelerator Center, which is an incubator center for tech companies. We have a good research and technology park. We have Communitech, which is another incubator for tech companies, and Velocity as well. And of course, we have some key businesses like Google, Shopify, and OpenText. We also have multiple shopping centers, so the malls, and of course, all the retail centers where people can get employment. For transportation, I am so thankful to be in this region because we have access to the 401. I used to live in Hamilton where we take 403. And for me, I found the 403 is much busier. And in fact, traffic moves slower on 403 than it does on 401. So when I moved to this region, I just, I noticed that, and I'm very thankful that I live in this area. And I'm also thankful that 401 takes you all the way to closer to Montreal. That's the way you would go. And also if you're going down towards London or even the US. So it's a very reliable and also very busy highway, and it's good to be close to it. If you live in Cambridge, Kitchener-Waterloo, I'll show you a map. You're literally sometimes, in most cases, 5 minutes or 10 minutes to get to the highway. The Waterloo region also has a 19-kilometer LRT line in Waterloo region. And this basically there's plans to extend the line to make it even longer, to go all the way to Cambridge. Because right now, I think it just goes between Kitchener and Waterloo, but there are plans in place to extend the line. We do have a regular local bus network. So for those who are looking to take the bus, that is an option as well. I know, like similar the way you have the bus system in Toronto, for those who live in Toronto, we do have those bus system as well that will connect to the LRT. In your case, the subway. So we do have that reliable network as well. In fact, I was speaking to someone today who didn't know that we have the LRT in Waterloo region. So I'm glad that I can talk about that. We have 9 trains that go to Toronto on a daily basis. And I think the first one leaves around 6 a.m. and then there's one every 30 minutes. Approximately, it takes about an hour and a half because it makes stops in the cities on the corridor. So it goes from Waterloo, it goes through Guelph, and then I think it goes through Oakville too, and it makes stops in those areas. So if somebody was looking to commute to work using public transport, that is an option as well. I would recommend that you look into it. We have people here who are doing it. And we have 30 buses that go to Toronto on a daily basis in this region. On average, the commute time for a resident is about 22 minutes. And this is for people who are going to work. And actually, I should confess that before we moved to this region, I tried to live in Toronto for like a week. And I couldn't survive because the first day, at the time I still worked in government, and I was trying to go from North York to downtown where the government buildings are. And it took me like 2 hours drive. The next day I took the subway and it took me an hour. So I was like, no. And yeah, that's basically my decision to move in this area was solidified. So, you know, not having a lot of traffic, 22 minutes in traffic, this is pretty good. And then if you're just making, you know, shopping trips, those are even quicker. Like I can get to my local store in 5 to 10 minutes. As I was saying earlier, there are plans to expand the LRT in Cambridge, as well as future plans to expand highways to Guelph. There's Highway 7 that goes from Kitchener to Guelph. So there are talks for the province to expand that highway. Right now, I think it's 1 lane, but they're thinking about making it bigger and more reliable to accommodate the traffic that's commuting between Kitchener and Guelph. So this is what I was just talking about with the cities, Cambridge, Kitchener. Where Kitchener is, Waterloo's there as well. It's just that we zoomed out so we can't see Waterloo, but you can see the proximity to 401 and how when you live in these cities, you're also close to Milton. You're within, I'd say from Guelph, I'm about, 30 minutes to Milton, about maybe 35 to 40 minutes to Burlington, and I'm very close to Hamilton as well. So I like that being in Kitchener-Waterloo, being in Cambridge, I'm literally close to all the different cities around. Not only that, going to the airport is about 45 minutes. So people who are traveling and they want to be close to the airport, it's about 45 minutes to get to the airport from Guelph. And the bus that I was just, the train that goes to Toronto, so it goes from Kitchener and it goes through Guelph, and it makes a stop, I think, in Brampton as well. And it goes to Union Station, and it takes about an hour, 50 minutes. So it's a good time for those who like to read or listen to a podcast. You can do that. But there's a train every 30 minutes in the morning. And this is a schedule for the weekdays. I think on the weekend it's reduced, but that is something that somebody can look into if they're interested. This is the LRT I was just telling you about. So as you can see, it goes from Waterloo, Conestoga Mall, and it goes all the way to Fairway Mall in Kitchener. And there are plans to extend it to go to Cambridge as well. So this green, I think, is the future line. And I think there's plans for future GO train as well to go to Breslau. But we do have some transportation in place, but it sounds like the province is interested in extending it. So this is something that I find interesting as somebody who sometimes takes public transportation. So the top 10 neighborhoods in this region, I have to say this. This is based on popularity, the neighborhoods that are popular. If you would like to purchase a home in any of these communities, connect with me so I can see what your needs are. I'll give you an example. Here in Guelph, the top 3 most common neighborhoods are Pine Ridge. I actually used to live here as well in this neighborhood. However, this is a newer area. So for example, if you're a person who wants a bigger yard, a bungalow, like you want that, almost like small town feel, you won't find that in the south end of Guelph, which is where Pine Ridge is. However, it's a very popular neighborhood for people who are moving in here because there's a demographic of people, maybe young people who don't care about the outdoors. Maybe they just want to have a nice home. They're working hard and they just want a place to sleep. This neighborhood is also closer to the 401, so maybe it's also for that person who's commuting. However, I want you to know that this is based on popularity only, and to select the right neighborhood for you, I'd have to talk to you one-on-one to know what's good for you. So these are the top 3 neighborhoods for somebody who's looking to move to this region. I do like Dune South as well in Kitchener. This is closer to Conestoga College. So we're seeing, and also all of these are good neighborhoods. And I must say that living here in this region, there are very few neighborhoods I'd consider not so good, especially when you compare to Toronto. Like a lot of our neighborhoods are very safe. Now, it just takes a matter of knowing where prices are appreciating, like just knowing the market and knowing where to guide a client. But all the neighborhoods we have here are popular for a reason. This is where you're going to find the higher income earner. This is where you're going to find the newer homes. And some of these neighborhoods are older. Like if you look at Beechwood, it's probably like Beechwood in Waterloo region. It's probably maybe about 20 years old. Most of the homes in that neighborhood, maybe even 20 to 30. But it's a good neighborhood that people like to live in. Same applies to Hespel as well. Hespel is actually a younger neighborhood. Most homes are younger. They're probably about, I'm gonna say anywhere from 5 to 20 years old. And I think one of the reasons why Hespel is very popular is because it's right on 401. So it's perfect for that person who's looking to commute. So, these are all good neighborhoods. I love them. I actually myself live in one of these as well. So I love my neighborhood, but I also acknowledge that it's very different for every person. Like what people are looking for could be different. Same applies to schools. These are some of the top schools based on ranking and popularity in our region. However, it depends on what a family is looking for. My kid's school is not here. Why? Because what I'm looking for is way different from what, say, the average person would want. So that's why I'm saying it depends on what you're looking for. I've had clients who want the IB program in a school, and some of these don't have the IB program. So I have to sit with you and see what your needs are and where you're looking to be. But if you're just looking for general popular schools, these are some of them. Some of them are public schools. We do have a good mix of schools in this region, and that applies to Waterloo as well. Where I live in Guelph, we have some private schools, we have some French schools, we have the public schools. Many of these are public, but some of them are Catholic, like this is a Catholic school. However, we also do have the French schools. Actually, this one, Abba Vista, is one of the good schools. It's French. And I like that this region, we have a good selection of schools for those people who are looking. So let me know, connect with me. If you're looking for a school, you'd like to know what options there are. Largely depends on what you're looking for as a parent. Universities. So I actually would like to say that, like being in this area, some of my siblings are going through these universities and looking at what options they have. I myself, I went to McMaster University in Hamilton, and I did my master's at Laurier. So Laurier and Waterloo, they're just next to each other. And now I live in Guelph, so I'm very familiar with Guelph as well. And Conestoga College is not so far from these two schools as well. So we have a good mix of schools, but what I also like is that if you are a parent who, let's say your child doesn't want to go to any of these programs and they want to go to McMaster is about an hour away, right? And then we have Brock University within 2 hours. So we do have options for post-secondary schools. And it's also good to know that locally, we have some schools that are on the map. I also would like to say, and this usually targets people who are looking to invest in this region, there is demand for housing. One thing that's hot right now is student rentals. In our region, for example, in Guelph, the University of Guelph has increased the student population by 25%. So right now, I think in the last 2 years, they admitted 7,000 more students than they're used to having. Those students need a place to live. So for somebody who's looking to invest in a student rental, or they want a student rental model, connect with me. There's actually an interesting model that one of my clients is doing. That is something that we can talk about, but the demand for housing is there. We're also seeing that, all these universities rank high, in certain programs. For example, the University of Guelph is not that popular, but who knew that it ranks #1 in, food sciences and technology, So it's and the student population in all these schools, student body is getting larger by the year. So I really am thankful to live in this region. And also another thing too is that, and I'm saying this for people who don't live in Ontario, we have more universities in Ontario. So if somebody wants to study in Toronto, I have clients who live here. They moved to Canada to be close to their kids, but they don't like to be in Toronto. So they live in Guelph, but their kids are studying in Toronto. They can still see them as often as they'd like because it's only about an hour drive, but they have the convenience of living in a smaller town, mid-sized town. So if, let's say you're here and you're thinking about moving, here are some suggestions as to what you could start doing. The first thing is to confirm the timelines based on your circumstances. And once you know that, this is a decision you'd like to move, I usually recommend connecting with a mortgage broker or connecting with your bank. Some people will go straight to the bank. Some people go to a mortgage broker. You can ask me questions as to why mortgage broker versus bank. That is the conversation I'm willing to have as well. But once you find out what the finances say, what your budget looks like, then you can reach out to us, you can reach out to me, or you can reach out to your favorite realtor. I realize that some people here, some of them actually on this call might be realtors, but this is a time when you connect with a professional who knows the market, who can guide you through the process. From there, you can start a home search and you can do your due diligence. And this is a big one in Canada, not only in our region, making sure that we're doing a home search that meets your criteria, but also doing proper due diligence. I feel like one of my job as a realtor is risk reduction, making sure that you as a client are protected. And in our industry, we see a lot of interesting things, some people end up in lawsuits. We don't want that happening. So if you're gonna connect with a professional, make sure they know what they're doing and make sure that their interest lies in not only helping you do the transaction, but also protecting you, making sure that you don't end up in a lawsuit or you don't end up with a property that has all kinds of things because something was missed. Next, you have to negotiate your transaction in this market. We're in a good market where in the homes that I'm seeing right now, especially in the last few months, we are able to get properties under the purchase price. So if you're seeing homes that are listed for, let's say, $1 million, sometimes the sellers, they're aiming for a number that their neighbor got last year. So you need an educated realtor who's active in the market, who can look at comparables and tell you that this is the market value for this property. Because as I said, with doing due diligence and make sure that you're well protected, if you buy a property and you pay $1 million for a property that's worth 800, when the appraisal comes, you'll be in trouble with the bank. And we don't want that happening. So negotiating and making sure that you get a home for the price. In fact, in most cases, if we can, we try to get it under market value. There are situations where that is not possible, but where if I feel as an agent, if I feel that there's an opportunity that I can get you an extra 1,000 in your pocket, that is my job to do that. So you can go to bed knowing that we did our best. So that's why that point number 5 is important. Negotiate and then close on the home of your choice. I also wanted to mention that we have a tool for home search. So I think I can speak to my team. We can make it available to you, but it's literally, on my website, there's a section where you can enter your information as to what you're looking for, and the system will capture that and it will notify you every time a home comes to market that matches your criteria. So I can speak to my team and they can make that available to everyone who's on this call. Alrighty, so that is the presentation. This is my information. My phone number on social media, our handle is @JocelynNicholas. So you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube as well. And the handle is @JocelynNicholas. That's my email and of course our website. So if you go to search.jocelynnicholas.com, that is where you can start searching for your home. But I'll make sure that my team makes it available as well, because it's such a cool tool and you don't have to worry about, searching your home on realtor.ca, because this tool itself will notify you every time a home is posted on MLS, even though you're not on MLS per se. So let's see some questions. I think some questions have come in. So I have questions here. Someone said, what license did you get? If you can clarify on that as to what license. I'm a licensed realtor, but I'm a broker. And there's a difference between a regular agent and a broker. Usually a broker means you have to get additional education, additional qualifications. So I did that for my clients to make sure that I have a good understanding of what's happening and that I get as much education as I can for our clients. So yeah, I'm a broker. If that answers your question, I hope that answers your question. If it doesn't, please clarify and I'll be happy to get into that. And we have questions that were submitted ahead of time. Someone is asking for the slides. This webinar is being recorded for those who came a little later. It's being recorded and we'll make it available to attendees. If you'd like a copy, please let us know. You can also check it out on our YouTube channel. Let me just get some questions here. So we have some questions that were submitted ahead of time. Question number 1 is, tell me about positive cash flow. That is such a good question. And as an investor, you know that every number matters. So as an investor, I'm always looking for positive cash flow. So basically positive cash flow, for if somebody's hearing this word for the first time, this is where your expenses, if you have a property, your rent is enough, or your income in general, and this could be for any business. Your income is enough to cover your expenses and there's a profit left at every month. So your cash flow, the money that's coming in, is more than enough to cover your expenses and you have a little bit left. That little bit that's left, that is cash flow. So for example, if your expenses are 1,000, your rent is 2,000, the additional 1,000 that's left after you pay expenses, that is cash flow. So for me as an investor, I'm always looking for cash flow. But I should say that in this market where rates are very high, it's harder to get that cash flow. So we're having to be creative. My husband and I, when we started buying our properties, we started with the model that was very good. We usually don't buy single family homes, we buy multifamilies. So because single family homes are meant for they're meant for residential purposes, somebody needs to live there. I find, especially in the market where we're at, even with GTA, it's hard to cash flow on a single family home because usually on average the rent is if you're lucky, 3,000, and 3,000 in this market is not going to cover your mortgage. So to get cash flow, we're having to be a little more creative. And as I said, one strategy is to have multifamily. There's a lot of strategies, and I'd be happy to talk about what other strategies we're using. One of them though is getting multiple units. How can anyone contact directly with you and your mortgage team? That is a good question. We have a link that we'll put in the chat box, and you can book a one-on-one consultation with me, and I can meet with you and discuss your needs as well as connect you to our mortgage team. Alrighty. So let me get into question number 2 from the questions that were submitted early. What do you think about the real estate potential for the Toronto-Waterloo corridor? What's your view on Milton and Halton Hills? That's a good question. Toronto-Waterloo corridor. So when I'm looking at real estate, I look at it differently. I'm looking at rents, how much rents are coming in, how do they compare to the rest of the region? But I'm also looking at purchase price. Those are just, some of the two things that we look at. Of course, we looked at population growth, looked at income. All those things are important. But if you're comparing Milton and Guelph and Kitchener-Waterloo and Toronto, we'll see in most cases that the income is going to be good for the household income. But more importantly, if you buy a property right now in Milton for $2 million, some like Milton properties are expensive, but let's say an investment property, you can find something for $1 million. That same property in Kitchener, you can probably buy it for maybe $850. So the same property you're buying $850 in Kitchener compared to the one you're buying in Milton. In some cases, you find that rents are very comparable. Like the rents you'll get in Milton versus the rents you get in Kitchener, they will be very comparable. My answer to this question will say it depends on what your goals are as an investor. There are people who are looking for appreciation. So if you're looking for appreciation where you're just looking to build equity, that is a different conversation. You have to look at different criteria. But if cash flow is important to you, GTA, Oakville, Halton region, Milton, these are more expensive markets, and you might not be able to get the cash flow you're looking for. Also, in the last few years, and I know that this is very unique to the last few years, we've seen a lot more people move from GTA into the smaller towns like Kitchener, Waterloo, Guelph. So our appreciation was actually higher than what GTA got. So again, it comes back to what the goals are as an investor and what you want to do, what you want to achieve. So that is a conversation we can have. And if you want appreciation, that's a different conversation. If you want cash flow, that is a different conversation. If you want wealth building, like long-term holding, that is also a different conversation. So these are things we can talk about. Question number 3, given the current market condition, can we get a freehold property with 3 beds under 650? Looking for a freehold property for 650, it depends on the market. And I never say never, because if I can get that for you, that is what I want to do. So my answer to this question would be, it's less likely, but I'm not going to say it can't happen, because I've bought properties myself that are way under market value. If I was to get that for you, it would be way under market value. I'm not going to say it's impossible. I'm going to say, reach out to me and we'll come up with a plan that will potentially see us get that home for you. It's not unrealistic, especially in a market where things aren't moving as fast. If somebody asked me this question in January of 2021, I would have said maybe not. But in this market where things are selling for under market value, where things are selling for under listing price, so if you're seeing a listing price on MLS, in some cases, we're able to get a property for less than that. So I'm not going to say no. I'm going to say connect with me and we'll look at what options are available. Next question is, sorry, the questions are like being sent on my phone. So if you see me looking on my phone, that's what I'm doing. If you had picked a location between Guelph, Kitchener, and Waterloo with good schools, which would be your top pick? Honestly, I think that picking a city depends on what else you're looking for. I think schools, most regions will have really good schools. I think the schools that I had on the screen today, those are pretty good schools, you know. I know Waterloo has some really good schools. Guelph has some good schools as well. So I would say that it depends on what you're looking for. And schools differ, you know. Some people are looking for private schools. Some people are looking for Christian schools. Some people are looking for public schools. Some people are looking for Catholic schools, French schools, English schools, French immersion. So I think that let's talk again. It's some of these questions are very like very specific. I'd have to know what you're looking for to make a recommendation. Like I know some really good schools. I know a very good French school. I know a very good Christian school. I know a very good public school. It depends on what you're looking for, but also looking at what else is important, because I don't think school is the only thing that's important. You know, you might want to be close to the 401. You might want to be, you know, so there are different things that we can look at. But if I had to pick one, well, I live in Guelph right now and I love it. So I guess I'll settle for that. But I'm not saying that Waterloo doesn't have good schools, because I know that those schools that I had on the screen, those are very good schools as well. In terms of connectivity to the GTA, which location would be considered better? So if you are somebody who's commuting, your commute time will be shorter. Go back to the screen. If you live in Cambridge or if you live in Guelph, as you can see, like you see Kitchener-Waterloo is a little bit farther. So if you're looking to commute to Toronto, connectivity to GTA, if you're in Guelph, that's good. Cambridge is even closer to the 401. So we can look, and there are some good neighborhoods here close to the 401 where you can just jump on the 401 and you'll be on your way. There are some locations in Kitchener as well, but we have to be on this side of Kitchener that's close, like Dune South. Dune South, the neighborhood that I showed it's right, like, let me go back. It's somewhere here, like it's on the 401. So Dune South is probably like here, where you can just jump on the 401 and you're ready to go. So I think Kitchener-Waterloo closer to GTA. I mean, Guelph and Cambridge closer to GTA than Kitchener-Waterloo. However, there are parts of Kitchener that are far away. That are closer to 401. Sorry, to Central. Next question is it possible to get a fairly new detached property with 4 beds in these areas for under 900? Yes, it is possible. And right now, that's another thing that maybe I didn't touch on because I only had 1 hour, but builders are sitting on inventory. So if you're looking for a very new home, maybe we can look to see what builders have. The only challenge that sometimes we have with builders is that they have a pricing model, they don't budge. And we're seeing builders who are selling homes at the price of what they would have been in 2021. But we know prices have come down. So you have to be careful when you're buying a new build. And we're seeing a lot of people who are still buying new builds without negotiating with the builder. Right now, builders are sitting on inventory. If there's any time to negotiate with the builder, it's now. So I would say, yes, it's possible. And we're seeing some homes too. We have a demographic of buyers who bought properties at a very high price, assuming the rates will stay low. And now they can't close on them, or they can close, but they can't keep up with the payments. For example, if you bought $1 million new build, back then your expenses would have been at $3,000 a month. But with rates where they are right now on $1 million mortgage, you're looking at about $6,000. So it could be a family that maybe with their numbers work at $3,000 a month, but they don't work at $6,000 a month. So we're seeing a lot of that inventory. And yes, that price point of 900, I think we can get it done. Again, this is a very specific question, so I recommend you reach out to me so that we can look at what you're looking for. And the answer might be different for a different city. Like if you want to be in a certain neighborhood of Guelph that's more expensive, that is a conversation we have to have, versus if you want to be in another neighborhood that is slightly cheaper. You can always get more in a cheaper neighborhood. But again, we have to make sure it's a good neighborhood, it's the right neighborhood for you. What are some good areas for multifamily units with positive cash flow? So with multifamily units, I think both these areas, like the 4 cities I talked about, they do have a good amount of multifamilies. I think Guelph has fewer than, I would say, Kitchener, Waterloo, but that's because those are denser cities. So the population of Kitchener-Waterloo is about 500,000 people. Here we're only about less than 300,000 people. So, you know, density is a thing, but if you're looking to buy multifamily, I think any of these cities will work. And rents are pretty comparable as well. Guelph, I think, has slightly higher rents, but it's just a little bit, maybe like $200 difference. But sometimes when you're looking at numbers, the $200 a month could make a difference. Let me see. Can you consider Windsor or Niagara? So that is an interesting question. I know that Windsor-Niagara corridor is cheaper. However, for me as an investor, part of the reason why I sold my Niagara portfolio is because it was too far for me to manage. And I manage some of my own properties. So for me personally, just because of the distance, I wouldn't. However, for an investor who doesn't mind where their property is, that Windsor-Niagara corridor is good. Because, for example, my properties in Niagara were cash flowing really well as well. So I think that it's a decision you have to make. Another thing too, I'm glad that I sold my Niagara portfolio, because if you look at the numbers right now, Niagara has gone down more than Kitchener-Waterloo, this region. What happens with Niagara is people cannot live in Niagara and work in Toronto. Like, that is a long commute. But people can live here and work in Toronto. So the proximity to Toronto matters. If I had to pick between the two regions, I would stay with Kitchener-Waterloo, Guelph, just because it's closer to Toronto. And I know that it's always going to be in demand. For Niagara, I think it's one of those areas where people invest or people buy just because it's cheaper. And if prices start to go down, these places that are so far away from GTA go down the fastest. And that's what we've seen. If you look at data for Niagara region, depreciation in the last year has been higher than this region, and it's because it's far. How much interest? And what is it? Okay, so the question is, how much interest are you gonna get as a first-time home buyer? Right now, I'm going to say, and it depends on your profile as well. You know, are you a riskier profile or are you a safer profile? Because the banks, they have their own numbers. But I'm gonna say right now, people who are getting a very like a fixed 5-year term, you're looking at maybe, I'm gonna say, between 4.5 and 5.5. And that's if you're buying your first primary residence. For investors, it's different. For me, for some of my personal portfolio, I'm paying like 8%. That's just the rate I pay. That's the price I pay for having a lot of properties. So I'm paying about 5%, 8%. And some of my properties that have a variable rate, like all these challenges that people are facing, I'm facing them too. But that's what investing is. It's not a smooth road. There are ups and downs. So yeah, but to answer that question, for first-time home buyer, I think if you have a strong profile, you're looking at maybe 5.5. But I've heard some banks have lowered their 5-year term. My advice though, if we go back to this graph, I would say don't get a fixed term mortgage for 5 years. Look at the rates. Like, this is what the rates have been in the last 22 years. And you're seeing, like, we have one of the highest rates ever. Well, in the last 15 years at least. You can see that the rate we have is not normal. What we're used to is this. So that's why I do believe the rates will come down. And my advice to somebody who's looking to buy a property now, get a 1-year term or 2-year term. Like, if you want that stability for 2 years, the 2-year term is probably better, just because 2-year terms, the rates are lower than a 1-year term. But also you have 18 months where you can't get out of the contract, which is okay. You know, 12 months and 18 months is only 6 months difference. So I would say don't get a 5-year term, because you're going to be locked in for 5 years at the highest rate in 15 years. Don't do it. Right now, my mortgages that I'm getting, my 8% mortgage, I'm only getting 1 year. I have another mortgage that I signed about 3 months ago, and I paid, I think it was 5.9, but I did 2 years on that just because it's a little bit lower. However, listen to me, like, and you know what? I'm not a mortgage broker, but I'm telling you as an experienced investor, don't take a 5-year term because you're going to be locked in at the highest rate possible. And then what is the lowest down payment for a house in the price point of 350 to 400? So any property below 500 purchase price, you can get away with paying 5% down payment. However, when you do a 5% down payment, you have to pay mortgage insurance, which could be anywhere from 15 to 25,000. So if you can afford to do a 20% down payment, that is usually advised. However, if you can't do 20% down payment, that's okay. You can pay 5% down payment up to 500. Once you go above 500 purchase price, anywhere from 500 to 1 million, you have to do 10%. So in most cases, if you're buying like a property for 800,000, you have to pay like 7% down payment because they take the average. Like on the first 500, you can do 5%. And then anything above between 500 and 1 million, you have to do 10%. What is your opinion on buying properties built between the 70s and the 85? You know what? I have properties that are this old. Like one of my properties actually that I remember, it's a very nice property, but it was built somewhere in like 83 to like 87. And it's a nice property. To be honest, do a home inspection. Make sure that the structure is solid. Make sure that it doesn't have any, as long as you understand what you're getting into and you know that, for example, for me, when I'm buying a property, I'm looking at the big picture. If a property, I'm getting it for a good deal, that has to be the first thing, and all my other numbers work. And I know that some of the things that get old is the roof, it's about 10,000. The HVAC is about, another 6,000 to 7,000. You're looking at, you want to make sure that the electrical is updated. You want to make sure that, so if all those major things are done, I would buy it. If they're not done, I will still buy it, but I have to buy at a price that compensates for the fact that I'm going to do this renovation. The property I'm talking about, when I bought it, it was original. Nothing was done. So they've never changed. Maybe they changed the roof a few times, but the roof was old. Everything had to be done. So I paid, $660 for it. But after the renovation, it was worth like $1 million. So it's worth it for me because my numbers work. I'm not, the only properties that I would hesitate to get are the 100-year-old homes, just because those homes have been around for so long. Usually there's like, sometimes you find like foundation issues because the home's been standing for 100 years. Sometimes you also find problems with, the electrical hasn't been updated. They're still using the code that existed back then. And you find that the plumbing too, there'll be issues, find asbestos. So for those homes that are that old, I would be careful. I would make sure that I have a home inspector who's going to go through the home and tell me what I'm getting into. You need to understand what you're getting into. But if you're buying a home that is like, 35, even 40 to 50 years old, the code was updated by then. So there are still issues you need to care about. Just make sure you understand what you're getting into. And I'm the kind of person who will buy a problem property. Why? Because problem properties is where we make money. And that's just from an investment perspective. And that could be different from somebody who's buying their first property. But if I know a property has a problem, I'll still buy it. I just need to compensate for that. I just need to know that I need to put in a budget. If something costs $10,000 to fix, I just need to know that in my numbers, I need to account for $10,000 to fix whatever is wrong. So right now, we are at 8:04. I am respectful of your time. So I know that I still have a lot of questions that I didn't get through. But what I'll do is I will follow up one-on-one with these questions that are coming in, because these are very good questions. There's a question here about the opioid drug problem in Kitchener-Waterloo. We have problems in a lot of, I'm pretty sure this exists in Toronto as well, or Vancouver, like, you know, in most expensive, like this is a problem that's going on. Maybe not only Canada-wide, but also, you know, maybe North American-wide or even worldwide. What we have to know is we have to know the neighborhood. If you have these concerns, these are valid concerns. We just need to make sure that we get you the neighborhood where those things are less likely to happen. But you're right, I have to say I haven't heard of this, but if this is something, I haven't heard of this in my area, but I know that it's a real problem that Canada, US, worldwide, this is a problem that countries are facing. If you're concerned about it, this is where you need to work with a local person who knows the neighborhood. There are neighborhoods that are less likely to have these problems. So we just have to make sure that we get you in that kind of neighborhood. Anyways, it's 8:06 and I'm still talking, and I really could do this for 2 hours if I could, but I want to respect your time. And as I said, I will reach out to people who are submitting these questions, and I will ask these questions. I will answer all these questions that I haven't had a chance to reach to. But I wanted to say thank you very much for taking the time to be on this webinar. I do these webinars because I want to educate, and I want to make sure that people, buyers, sellers, you know, people are making educated decisions, you know. So I hope that this has done that for you. And if you still have questions or you want to connect with me, I can absolutely do that. Just let me know, let us know, and we'll be happy to do that. Once again, thank you very much for being here, and have a wonderful rest of your evening. Thank you again. Bye, everyone.